First, though, we do have some breaking news coming in. Let's go to that. We are receiving news of a pan-India set of raids being led by the National Investigative Agency, purportedly on gangsters across the entire country. They're carrying out raids and searches at around 50 different locations. These raids are on gangsters, according to the NIA. Now, different parts of North India in specific, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan and Delhi NCR region have all seen raids over the last few hours. We're learning that the raids are in recently registered cases against activities of gangs, executing, and this is very specific, executing sensational murders to terrorize common citizens. That's the ambit given to those who are conducting these arrests. We also understand that they are under the scanner after MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs, instructions to act against them. These are the details we have with us right now. My colleague Anand Narasimhan with us right now to bring us more details on each of these developments. Anand, our audiences will remember the quick action we saw from administration after the Siddhu Moosewala case against Lawrence Bishnoi's group in particular. Is this an extension of that?
Not just that, but as I say, good morning to you and to our viewers. The fact is that beyond Siddhu Moosewala, there have been a recent involvement, even when the terror crackdown happened, and there were gangsters and gang groups who were caught with drugs, who were caught with tiffin bombs, and they were ferrying it to other parts of the country. So suddenly there was this entire activity of gangster involvement in ferrying of narcotics and also arms and ammunition. And these gangs actually, to try and further their own interests, also working with these entities based on foreign soil, who were trying to use these gangsters as people for hire. So each area and for each task, the gangsters would be individually hired, or groups would be individually hired. They would be paid money, or they would be given a share of the arms and ammunition that they were trafficking for their own personal use. But these people looked very, very discoordinated, but they were being coordinated by a master on the outside of our territorial borders. So that's where this entire aspect came through. Then there was a recent survey and security review, internal survey and security review, where the Home Minister very clearly directed not just a total audit of what is happening across our porous borders with Nepal and areas where there was high amount of infiltration or in the population exchange which was happening. Along with that, there was a huge review that happened about gangsters and gang groups, and that these gangsters should now be treated as terrorists and should be charged under UAPA. This came to the seriousness of the matter came to the fore, like you said, with the Siddhu Moosewala issue, with Lawrence Bishnoi openly running gangs and operating out of Tihar, one of the most safest and secure jails in the country, that had become the headquarters for this gangster group. Largely the gangster groups across the north and Delhi NCR region and extending into Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, were two large groups which were there. The Neeraj Bhavania gang and also the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, so Kala Jathedi and the others aligning themselves with either one of these two. So largely it had reduced to these two gangs who had become perhaps the umbrella overarching networks under which all the smaller gangs would perform a work and conduct their operations. So now the crackdown has begun. So there are the raids are on at 50 locations across Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, and of course the Delhi NCR region. The gangs which are largely involved are the Lawrence Bishnoi gang that was also in behind, that includes Goldi Barar and the others who were part of this entire gang and plot to kill Siddhu Moosewala. But that was again a gang war, result of a gang war. So there is the Bhagwanpuria gang, the Kaushal gang, and the Bambia gang. So this Bambia gang is the one which had issued a counter threat on Goldi Barar, who's sitting and operating in Canada. In fact, some interesting details have been put out even on News18 India last evening, which show that there was a nexus with those operating at the borders, the porous borders with Nepal, and that there were going to be fake papers that were going to be made for the shooters, most largely involved in carrying out the Siddhu Moosewala murder, and these shooters were planning an escape via Nepal. So from India into Nepal with fake papers, and then move to a country in Central Asia, and from thereafter become untraceable for the Indian authorities. But all of that has been stopped. So this crackdown is nationwide. It's a big mega operation. And today is perhaps one of the first of many more crackdowns to follow. But simultaneously, about 50 locations are being raided by the NIA.
Okay, and Anand, if you could just walk our audiences through more of an understanding of how these gangs are going to be tried. You were saying that they're going to be tried as if almost they are terrorist groups. Could you walk our audiences through what that's going to mean?
See, the point is that when you aid, abet any act of terror, be it via the route of narcotics or supplying of arms and ammunition and explosives, then by default you become a terror operative because you're aiding and abetting in an act of terror. So that's how these gangs should be looked at, is the instruction that's come from the MHA, because they are also involved in terror acts. So in fact, the IED bomb blast that happened in a court area premises in Punjab, the intelligence wing of the Punjab police, there was a blast there. The raids when in Karnal in Haryana, where the car was caught with tiffin bombs and huge amounts of explosives, these members were all gangsters. These people had all been recruited and they had been given certain latitude, longitude codes where they were supposed to drop the cargo. And there was another gang which was supposed to pick it up and ferry it into another state, and then eventually the destination was towards Hyderabad and another destination was in Karnataka. So these issues are all intertwined. The fact that these people got the most modern kind of ammunition, and that too the hub was somewhere in Madhya Pradesh, and that was another gang that was running this entire arms and ammunition in operation, and they were connected. And these arms and ammunition had origins from Pakistan. The handlers and a lot of these gangs were in touch with terror organizations and terrorists who were operating out of Pakistan, who were using these gangster groups. So it was, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So if that is the case, then you're involved in activities which are against the interest of the country and challenge the sovereignty and security of the nation. So there should be no gangster act that should be invoked. What should be invoked is the UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and they should be treated as terrorists. So that's the decision that was taken under the aegis of the Home Minister in that recently concluded meeting.
And Anand, if you could also walk our audiences here through the involvement that we believe might be there of Pakistan and these Pakistan-based groups. What knowledge do we have so far of the kind of groups that are involved and the kind of support that they're sending across the border?
Well, what is happening is that, especially with Punjab, the Khalistanis have been involved. These are gangsters who are in touch with those operatives who are based in Canada. So the phone calls and the communication has all happened in Canada. And Goldie Barar's connections have been traced to and him being in touch with our operators or Khalistani operators, former gangsters who are now sought refuge in Pakistan and who are under the aegis of the ISI, who are currently operating out of there. And from there, they're helping these gangsters increase their operations. Eventually, what will happen is the gangsters will have to come back and return the favor. It's a similar aspect like we saw in the 90s with what the D Company was allowed to do, and it became big enough. And eventually, the D Company was involved in the smuggling of drugs, ferrying of the shooters, all individually, and also of arms into Mumbai, and their roles actively have been involved in the serial blasts in Mumbai.
Anand, stay
So
with